Welcome into 5 Wide. Today we're talking Super Bowl. Usually we get into a bunch of player props. I didn't want to talk by myself for every single video we do here, so brought the boys with me, Ryan and Sandy. We're gonna go through about 5 different things. You go to a Super Bowl party or you go watch the game with some people who don't gamble. They might ask you some questions, and if they want to bet for the first time, we're gonna be covering the side, the total, a Chiefs player prop, a 49ers player prop, a touchdown score. Gotta have one of those. And then we'll go some off the board, novelty prop or something a little bit less mainstream. Hopefully the guys have some good information. But if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Really appreciate it. It's been a great season. The last football video that I'll be doing.
Crazy.
Right.
Damn.
Been a great ride.
Yeah, great game. I think a lot of people are a little disappointed at the end of the conference championship games, but I think that has to by this time moved along and you've moved on and you're ready for 2 of the best teams in the league to play each other in the Super Bowl. And that's all we can ask for. Where we'll start is the side. Okay, we're going to start 49ers or Chiefs. I'll leave it up to you guys whether you take the money line or the spread. But I got some questions for you. First will be, okay, what do you think this line would have been priced at before the postseason started? So the Niners are right around -2 right now. What do you think the line would have been if we had these 2 teams play in the wild card round?
It's a great question. I did see a tweet that it would have been around 7. And that guy, 6.5, 7. Oh. That's what I saw potentially. Because the Chiefs offense, or in the regular season, it looked like a different unit when the playoffs started, as we know. We all acted surprised, but in theory, it's really not that big of a surprise considering who they have offensively. Patrick Mahomes obviously leading the charge. And then the Niners defensively, they have a ton of points, obviously stunned by the Packers even hanging in that game. The Lions, they had to claw back in both those games. So obviously people are taking that into consideration now, thinking this Niners defense is a little bit weaker than they were in the regular season.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly think that, in my opinion, I would have said probably 6. That would have been my line that I'd set, Niners minus the 6 in a regular season, after the regular season concluded.
Yeah, I would have agreed.
The neutral, I guess it's
neutral site.
Still, I would say 5.5, 6. It is still Patrick Mahomes. I know obviously it's probably the worst offensive season we've seen from them in recent memory for a Patrick Mahomes-led offense, but I still believe it'd be about 5.5, 6 because I think there's a lot of respect you got to give to this Chiefs defense and how Steve Spagnuolo has kind of run this unit this season.
Yeah, I would have said I would have felt 4. I think that's what it probably would have been, getting past some of the important numbers of 3 and potentially to 4.5. So that leads me to ask you guys what has changed? To me, it's just simply perception on these teams has changed in a big way. You mentioned the defense. The Niners are playing. The Niners' last 2 games have been the worst stretch of defense they played the entire 100%. Season. I don't even think that's a question. The way that they've looked the last 2 games has been really, really bad. I don't think they can play much worse. But again, they're playing. The other narrative being the best quarterback in the NFL, playoff Mahomes, unfadable. This team can't be beat. Is there anything else that's changed from other than really public perception that the line has changed so drastically, being just a 2-point favorite compared to before?
I think there's 2 things for the Chiefs. I think the Niners, I agree with what you said about their defense. They haven't been as good as we saw in the regular season. But for the Chiefs, I think it's just execution-wise, they've just been much better. Offensively, I think they've been much better, especially Patrick Mahomes have yet to have a turnover in the postseason, which is huge because he had 14 picks in the regular season, and the Chiefs turned over the ball a lot, which definitely hurt them in a lot of the close games. And then I think the Chiefs defense as well has been even better in the postseason, especially the second half defense. I think they've given up 1 touchdown in the second half so far this season in the postseason, excuse me. And I think that goes to Spagnuolo being able to change on defense, or just really being able to adjust in the second half. So I think those are 2 things I think I've seen change.
Yeah, my thoughts too. We talked about the Niners defense. What about the Niners playing from behind in back-to-back games? That's a big narrative as well. While there's been negatives with the defense, as someone who's a Niners hater, I'm a Packers fan, so I'm a little biased here, but they did come back in both those games and break that trend where they're 0-30 with under Kyle Shanahan, 0-38 under Kyle Shanahan when they're behind by 8 or more points. And again, that's a great trend to have, seeing Brock Purdy be able to lead the charge and the offense score points. Now, do I think the Niners, I'm not selling the Niners defense like a lot of people are. I do believe this unit is very, very solid and they'll come prepared to play, especially with the weeks to prepare. But to Sarah's point, I do agree. This is a defensive battle. We'll talk about the total a little bit, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but I do think both of these defenses will come to play in this game.
I think that's a good point, because I think as much as the Niners have been the worst defense in the playoffs, I think they've been the best offense. When you look at points and you look at the way they played in second halves, the way they were able to come back, I don't think anyone's looked better, because not only did they come away with these 2 wins with the defense playing poorly, but they were able to still run the ball super effectively despite some of these game scripts, and Purdy made some important plays at times. So what I want to do is I want to as we talk about what we're going to take in this game, I want to start with this. I think Kansas City, and it'll tell you who I think I have winning this game. I think Kansas City's coming into this game super overrated. If you look at these three games they played to get here, okay? We have the Dolphins game, right? 26-7, or was that final score, I think?
Yeah.
This is a Dolphins team that missed their top 4 edge rushers. They signed guys off the street. Melvin Ingram and Justin Houston were playing like every snap in that game, and they weren't even on the team the week prior. And the Chiefs kicked 4 field goals in that game. They did not finish drives. Their offense still, I did not think, looked good enough despite winning that game handily. You have a Bills team that historically played on the shortest rest of all time in a playoff game, if you remember, because of the fact they had to play the Steelers on Monday. What was that, Monday afternoon?
Monday, yeah.
And then make the turnaround. And I think a defense that was overrated. Like, they had no talent in their front 4. They were obviously banged up too. They didn't have much of a pass rush.
It was atrocious in that game, the pass rush.
Yeah, and the Chiefs, to their credit, on the road, moved the ball effectively. And then you get Baltimore, who, guys, they scored 3 points in the last 41 minutes of that game.
Crazy.
Like, I think Mahomes still found ways to be effective with their opportunities in that game to, like, not just immediately punt the ball away 3-and-out, but they still didn't do a lot in that game. I do think the offense is overrated, but I am super concerned with defensively for the Niners. Steve Wilks has played a lot of zone and committed to it all season, and the Chiefs have been really good against zone and not as good against man, so he needs to, you said it, 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah.
There needs to be adjustments defensively, and you need to play into what your opponent is offensively. So that's the big matchup for me, is the 49ers defense. And honestly, I don't have a lot of answers as to what will change or how much better they can be. The pass rush needs to be better.
Yeah.
Like with Bosa, Hargrave, like this is super talented.
Chase Young's been a pedestrian. Yeah.
Super talented, but they haven't done a whole hell of a lot. Even the Packers game didn't generate a ton. Like,
no.
How many times did they get after Jordan Love?
No, they didn't have I think they had a sack. They had 1 sack.
One sack in that game.
Yeah.
And then
they might have had 0, actually. They had a couple pressures. 1 or 0 sacks. Regardless, that's still not enough.
Detroit, there wasn't a ton.
No.
Tooney's absent didn't look like a big deal for KC. But what do you guys think about defensively for the Niners? Like, is there anything you add to what I'm kind of talking about?
Well, I think, like you said, Steve Wilks has played a lot of zone throughout the season. And I think
one of the highest in the league.
If you look at kind of D'Amico Ryans, obviously would have been a very similar like style, I would think, from the year before when the Chiefs and the Niners did play, and the Chiefs went off for 44 points. Mahomes threw it for a ton of yards. Juju had like 140 yards receiving in that game. Travis Kelce had a really good game as well. McCole Hardman scored. So I think that's something to definitely take into this. Will Steve Wilks be able to adjust at halftime, as well as, let's say, Steve Spagnuolo, if the Niners do have a lead, or vice versa, if the Chiefs do have a lead? So going into that, I think is a big thing. Because I think Steve Wilks did make some adjustments at half against the Lions, where he went more to like a man game, and I don't think that was necessarily the changer of it, because we still saw the Lions drop a bunch of balls. They had opportunities to score. They just didn't really execute on them. So I wouldn't take that. I would take that with a grain of salt a little bit. But I still respect this Niners defense. I think this still might be, obviously, actually, after what we've seen, especially last week with the Ravens, this will be the toughest pass rush Mahomes will be up against, especially considering the athletic linebackers that the Niners have.
And the Ravens' pass rush was awful, too. Like they
God
were
awful.
Terrible. And that was the thing. And I said the same thing. The Niners, they can probably get away with more playing zone if they're getting pressure on the quarterback. But if they're going to sit back and let Mahomes pick a spot, pick a hole, like the receivers will find holes. Travis Kelce will find holes all day long, and they'll destroy him. So, again, it starts with the pass rush. The Ravens had none of it. The difference between the Ravens and the Niners offensively, I think the Ravens just got away from the run game in that game. And they didn't establish it. The Niners, even in that Packers game, started off, the reason they just didn't run the ball. They could have ran all over the Packers. They kind of did that more last week, I think, and stick to it. If they stick to the run, which I think they'll do, and they'll obviously feed McCaffrey, I think that's the recipe for success. And I think they'll control the time of possession. I'm hoping, at least.
One thing, too, is I think that San Francisco's problems, a lot of it stemmed from not being able to stop the run. Like Aaron Jones ran wild in that game.
Yeah. No one even thought he would too.
Even Montgomery especially was really good in that NFC Championship game. So maybe more of San Francisco's problems are against the run. And once teams are running the ball effectively, we're going to have some problems in terms of got to stack the box a little bit more. We're going to be putting our DBs on an island a little bit more. We're not going to be able to trust them as much. So I don't think I love their defensive backs. There's some good pieces, but not like super high level. I don't know if the Chiefs can expose their run defense like those two opponents
Yeah, for
Like like the Lions and the
the Lions running
Packers.
game's great. Yeah, they have two guys who are just, start on pretty much every team, right?
So I'll ask now, and then we can move along. But who do we like in this game?
Oh, it's Niners money line, and I think we're honestly relatively in
lines.
unison with that as well. But with everything we've talked about, I agree with everything you said about who the Chiefs have played this year. I think some of their wins are relatively fraudulent. Lamar Jackson last week obviously didn't play his best game. You got the Dolphins super shorthanded. The Dolphins or the Bills defense as well was very shorthanded. That secondary after what happened in that Steelers game from the week prior to that. And I think the biggest thing here is, like you guys mentioned, if the Niners can execute offensively on the ground game. And one of the biggest things the Chiefs have struggled with this year is, and it's not maybe the worst thing in the NFL, but their tackling grade on PFF has actually been relatively low. Coming into the playoffs, I think it was around like 15th or 16th in the NFL, or maybe even a little bit lower. So you already have guys on the Niners that are very hard to tackle. So if you're not tackling at a high rate, there's nothing really Steve Spagnuolo can do in terms of making adjustments to counteract for that. So I think the Niners get this one. Also, basing it on a trends thing, the Chiefs have covered like 5 straight spreads, including going from the regular season, and the Niners haven't covered a single game so far this postseason, including I think their Week 17 game. So
this is from the perspective we always talk about the books investment in this game. Like this is a line in the sand. Like we're making Mahomes a dog again. Like can we continue to lose money?
That'd be a crazy against the spread stretch going through all the playoffs,
For the
covering
best
every
quarterback
spread.
of all time, he just
Yeah.
keeps covering.
Yeah.
What do you like, Sam?
I'm on the Niners. I took the -2 though. I know you guys are on money line.
I took money line.
Again, I think this game, for me in big games, time possession, I think the Niners, if they stick to the run, which I do think they'll be able to do, can control the clock and control the time possession. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes being one of the best quarterbacks in the league can do the same, but I do think this Niners run game is something that can expose this Chiefs defense. And I honestly believe this game, from a Niners defense perspective, they can hold it together and they'll be able to keep Patrick Mahomes in check more than a lot of people do think. This is a tough unit. I know the Ravens defense, best defense in football. Everyone's be like, they didn't even get destroyed, to be honest with them. They didn't really run them through them, but I think the Niners defense can hold strong here, and I do think they'll get pressure on Patrick and make probably some errant throws and hopefully some turnovers. But give me time possession guy like Kyle Shanahan. That's what he's going to want to do, and I think he'll be able to do that with the run game. So I'm going to take the Niners.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're all on the Niners.
Yeah, great show. All the Chiefs fans and their replies, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be. It would
Let's
be
hear
really
it, Chiefs
bad.
fans. I want to hear it.
It would be really, really bad if this goes the other way, because again, the simple-minded thought is we're fading Patrick Mahomes.
We look like the biggest idiots. Yeah,
we look really dumb. I want to quickly say one thing. I'm a little concerned about the defense for the Niners. I am. That's one thing I'm finding some struggles of like where I map out how they can make some stops. But I love their offense in this game. I think Kansas City's defense has been really, really good. But I think what they've thrived on this year is their defensive backs. Snead, Watson, McDuffie. Those guys are super physical at the line of scrimmage. They've also got great length. They trust all these guys to play one-on-one. They played the 7th most man coverage in the league. Okay, so that's been a huge reason why the defense has played so well. It was why they were fantastic against Baltimore the other week, because they matched up so well. These receivers, not overly talented, didn't generate a lot of separation. Now, George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk are both top 10 in yards per route run in the entire league against man coverage. These guys are man killers. They're super physical. Even Jawan Jennings, you saw that clip against the Packers. Like, this guy craves contact. He's a very physical, big receiver as well. I like their offense a lot, because if these guys find success in the passing game with these two guys and how good they've been against man, it's going to force the Chiefs to play a little bit more of a help defense kind of deal, not play as much man. And then they've been one of the worst run defenses in the league. They're 26th in EPA against the run. I think the Niners can put together a lot of points in this game. So I do like the Niners quite a bit. I have them for a pretty sizable weight. I know Sandy does too.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move now and we'll be a little bit faster with the rest here, just kind of giving our thoughts on this game. Sandy, what do you think about the total? I know you mentioned it kind of briefly.
I like the under 47.5. I know this is one spot where some of us are differentiated, but I think it's a run-heavy script for the Niners, and I do think, to your point, like building off that, the play-action game is going to be big. If they're successfully running the ball, they'll be able to hit some shots, but I do believe it's going to be one of those Kyle Shanahan controlled time possession games. And then, again, the Chiefs' defense has been their bright spot. I know Mahomes has been great and been able to score and lead his team down the field and score when he needs to, but there hasn't been a light-up of points from him, honestly, in any of these games where it's been like the offense dominated. It was always the defense keeping them in a lot of games and shutting down the other opposing offenses. Now, I almost looked at like a first half under to actually bet that, but I think under 47.5 for me is kind of what I'm going to look at here. preferably to the over. I know there's been, I don't know about the last few Super Bowls. I'm sure you got some metrics for us on how they've gone.
No.
But I like the
Last
under.
one rolling over by a lot.
Yeah, last year we went over in a lot, so that means this year's going under. That's why I have it. No,
The red, black, red
I
theory.
have the over because I mentioned the concerns I have for the Chiefs or the Niners defense. Their pass rush, I think, is the most talented, like Ryan said, but it hasn't played like it. Like they're 9th in pressure rate in the year, but they're 17th in sack rate. Like they're not quite playing at the elite level I thought they would when it comes to getting after the quarterback. So if they're not doing that, and Mahomes has time, and if Wilkes is still wanting to play a lot of zone, there's some concern for me. So, and I think San Francisco finds some explosive plays in the passing game, like I mentioned against Man with Kittle and Ayuk. So I am playing the over. If I had to go one way, it'd definitely be over.
I have the under. It's not a play I necessarily love, but the reason why I like the under a little bit better, I think one play I also do really actually like, and I'm starting to like a little bit more than just Niners money line, is Niners first half money line. I think we see the Niners get out to a little bit of a lead here and then kind of just hold that lead. Because you saw, or I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Spagnuolo's adjustments and the second half defense over the last 4 weeks, their last 4 games, they've allowed 13 points scored in the second half, which is not a lot of points at all. So I think Spagnuolo can make those adjustments in the second half and, maybe put a wind to the sails of this Niners offense, and the Chiefs kind of try and claw back, but maybe the Niners still win. I also still think there's going to be some drives here where we see Mahomes get down to the 20, 25, and then it ends up being a field goal instead of a touchdown, a problem we've seen in a lot of these other playoff games. And I think there's going to be some turnovers on the side of the Chiefs side of things. They had so many turnovers throughout the regular season, I can't possibly think they're going to go throughout this entire postseason with Mahomes not throwing an interception or there being some sort of fumble. So that's also why I like the under.
Pressure creates turnovers. That's what we need. It's a recipe.
I will say 49ers overs are terrifying because, like you said, they do try to possess the ball, control clock, and don't play very fast. So I think you'll know pretty early if this game's going to go over or not. But then again, the Chiefs.
Their games have soared, though, to be honest.
The Chiefs game also looked like it was going to soar over. They didn't score any points late, like Ryan was saying about their second half defense. Okay, some player props now. I want your best Niners player prop.
Niners prop. So you talked about Kittle being one of the targets. I don't know if you're actually playing him, but I'm playing his over 49.5 receiving yards. So I looked at receptions. The data wasn't as good there, but 7 of his last 7 games, 5 games, he's been to the over. Now, I do believe he went back again. Look at his KC game in 2022. He went over. He had a touchdown. He had 98 yards on 6 catches. Now it's obviously a different defense. The Chiefs' defense now is much more improved since then. But I do think Kittle in that middle of the field presence. Again, he's a guy that can take the top off of the defense and actually make these longer catches. I almost looked at a longest reception for him, but I ended up going with his yards. I think he's very active early on in this game, and I think this could hit pretty early in the game. I like Kittle a lot on Sunday.
Nice.
So this is my negative correlation parlay of
under receptions, over yards.
I cashed them back-to-back weeks with Amon-Ra over receptions, under yards, and then I cashed Rashee Rice in the conference championship over receptions, under yards. But Kittle's is opposite. I like the over yards and under receptions.
I saw his receptions data is terrible. He's like 2 or 3 a game, and he's going over.
Receptions are only 3.5. Right,
it's
really low. Yeah,
that is low.
But his yards are being like, what do you have, 47.5?
Yeah, 40. I'm seeing 49.5.
49.5.
Yeah.
So he's actually gone under receptions and over yards 4 times this year. So it's happened a little bit. But the reason is, against man, he averages 22 yards per reception. 4th best in the league. So
that's why I was wanting to play
explosive.
longest reception, really. Yeah. I ended up going with yards because I think his volume. I think we'll get the volume, so I just played yards. But
he's a guy that's can be tough to get a read on. Like sometimes he's just doing a lot at the line of scrimmage, blocking in the run game and not running enough routes.
It was frustrating in the Lions game. That's what it was. It was a lot of blocking, and he's great at it too. So they don't mind doing that with him. But
I'm going McCaffrey over 89.5 rushing yards. He's over this number in 8 of his last 10 games, over in both postseason games. He had exactly 90 against the Lions in the conference championship game. But I think the one thing I like about playing this is the Niners are committed to the run game regardless of game script. Like they ran the ball with McCaffrey 20 times despite trailing with the Lions for 3 of those 4 quarters. Even the Packers game, 17 carries in that game despite trailing a lot of the way. I mentioned Casey's run defense, really, really poor against 26th in EPA, 4.5 yards per carry, which is also 26th. So for me, this is kind of a spot where you're looking at a team that's super committed to McCaffrey and volume on the ground, but also Elijah Mitchell not really getting, he didn't get a single carry in the divisional round. He got 4 against the Lions at the end of the game because McCaffrey actually went out with an injury, didn't play to finish the game. If you remember Elijah Mitchell trying to kill clock, that must have been terrifying. Right. Your backup back the ball as you try to kill clock. But McCaffrey's the focal point here. I think he's the straw that stirs the drink for this team. So I could see 18 to 22 carries in this one, and if he gets that against this run defense, I think he goes over.
I'm on this one as well.
Yeah, I have this at a nice price. Shout out to One Sportsbook. That will remain unnamed. But my prop is definitely a little bit off the grid or off the beaten path, but it's Kyle Juszczyk to have one catch. And it was minus 140. I got it at. Now it's up to minus 160 at a lot of places. So it's a good parlay piece. But if you look at last week against Detroit, 3 targets. If you look at just in the playoffs and how Kyle Shanahan runs his offense, there's so many different players that are on the field. He's usually on the field for about 25 to 30 snaps. For all we know, this could be a goal line touchdown pass to Kyle Juszczyk, but he's definitely used a little bit more when the higher stakes are on the line. If you look at recently as well, too, he has 8 catches in his last 6 games and over or catch in 4 of those 6 games as well. So I think there's definitely the data's there, and I think if you look at the more important games, especially against Detroit as well, when they were trailing, they used Juszczyk a little bit. So
caught like a seam pass.
Yeah, he's been a part of this team forever now. There are certain plays that will be drawn up for him. If he doesn't get the catch, he's definitely, I think, will be targeted at least once or twice.
Right. Yeah. That's sicko stuff.
Yeah.
Love it. I know a lot of people have seen some love for him. So
okay, Chiefs prop now. Anything on the board for the Chiefs that you want to play?
Yeah, and you'll probably see this one a lot, a little chalky, but Mahomes over 25.5 rushing yards is what I'm going to play. So he's in the regular season, 16 games, over in 10 of those games. So the data looks pretty good on props.cash there. He's only over in 1 of 3 playoff games, though. But if you look at his 3 Super Bowl games, this is kind of funny. I spent some time looking into this. His first Super Bowl, 9 rushes, 29 yards, a touchdown. Second Super Bowl, 5 for 33, so over that line, and 6 for 44. So these are, he's getting sick. He had 9 rushing attempts in the first one. Like, he's going to use his legs, obviously, in these key third down situations when it looks like no one's open, 3rd and long. Kind of plays into what I think Sir is going to talk about here shortly. But I think Mahomes will have the opportunities in terms of rushing attempts to get over this 25.5 line. And the data from previous Super Bowls kind of suggests that. So I'm going to play the over 25.5.
Desperation's definitely there. We always see that with Mahomes.
And if we'd like the Niners to be leading, if they're leading late in the game, he'll be using his legs. So I do like that.
I want you guys to listen to this because I haven't told you about this or the sell job for this prop, but I love Rashee Rice over 6.5 receptions.
I like this too.
The reason being, so we're looking at this San Francisco defense to say they play a lot of zone coverage. That leaves them susceptible to screen plays. And they've actually allowed the 6th most completions on screen passes in the entire league. So people are looking to make these types of plays against them constantly. They're allowing They're allowing the 8th highest completion percentage. And not only are they throwing the ball in these play designs a lot, it's because it's been very successful. 6.2 yards per coverage snap allowed, which is 23rd in the NFL. Rice has the 6th most screen receptions in the entire league. He has 24 in the season. Next closest Chief has 8 less than him at 16, so he's clearly the guy they go to. If you look at it also in the postseason, these are the types of plays they designed up for him. And as well, he's been the best receiver on the Chiefs against zone coverage. I mentioned you'd probably see a fair bit of that for San Francisco. But as well, the one thing you notice with San Francisco in these 2 games, they struggled a lot with the outside zone run game. The Chiefs do not, that's not their running scheme. They play a lot more at the inside zone. So do they look to change the scheme up, or do they look to get the ball to Rice in these screen plays to attack where the Niners have clearly been much, much worse is on the outside. They want to stay away from the linebackers. I think these linebackers also give Travis Kelce some problems. That makes Rice as the number 2 guy here really important. Yards are a consideration for me. It's a pretty healthy number, and Rice's average at the target is quite low, so he has to be super efficient with these catches to get over the 70. I think it's like 70 yards or so.
It was high. I was looking too.
So I like the receptions a lot more. He went over it against the Ravens. He's over it in 6 of his last 9 games. I think this is a really good spot for Rice. So I love this prop for him. Some places it's actually plus money.
Great solid job.
Yeah, I like that as well. That probably will end up on my card.
Yeah.
I think Rashee Rice is a guy I'm going to be targeting in some props for the Chiefs, but my favorite Chiefs prop kind of goes with Sandy's, but Patrick Mahomes over 12.5, his longest rush. So he's been very good to this throughout his postseason career. His last 4 playoff games, he has gone over this line. Against the Dolphins and the Bills, had a 38-yard rush, or 28-yard rush, a 24-yard rush. Even against the Ravens, his longest rush was 11 yards. In the Super Bowl, that 11-yard rush could turn into a 13-yard rush. Everything on the line, you might be not as inclined to slide or run out of bounds. And he's hit this in the last Super Bowl that he played against the Eagles. He had a 20-yard or 20-plus yard rush. as well. When the lights shine big for this guy, he tends to show up, and I think he'll do anything to really win this game. So with the pressure that they're going to be playing, a lot of zone, there could be the spy could be playing a little bit further off the line if the linebackers tend to drop off, which might give Mahomes a chance to run it. He's going to have 5 or 6 opportunities to run the ball, as Sandy was mentioning it. So I think one of those you can think to get over 12 yards.
Yeah.
This one's always fun. If you want to play these guys to score first or anytime, last, whatever it is, I always put together a touchdown parlay for this game. Favorite touchdown score?
I got Debo anytime, plus 140 is what I'm seeing around most books. Is around the number, plus 145 some places. But last 10 games, he's actually scored 9 touchdowns, but last 3 games, 0 touchdowns. So obviously, a guy that's due. I love a guy that's due. That's kind of how I'm looking at it, a guy that has the volume. Now, in that last game against the Lions, had a pretty healthy game, 80-something yards. I think he had 6 or 7 catches. But before that, there was a 3 or 4 game stretch where his volume and his production was down for sure. Obviously got injured in that Packers game, but I do think Debo in such a big game, big situation, I really like Debo. And I think he'll find the end zone. He's the guy that's going to get those pop passes in the red zone. We saw him score a couple of those this year. He's going to get some rushing attempts probably as well. I like his versatility, although the cornerbacks of the Chiefs are a tough matchup for him. But I do think he can get in, even if it's in the run game. I think he has a chance to get in.
This could be a handoff for all we know. And this guy, his ability to break tackles and how the Chiefs grade have been in tackling, I think that even helps this case even more, to be honest. Him or McCaffrey.
Yeah, I was just going to say, playing anyone other than McCaffrey on the Niners is tough, but with us backing the Niners, it was hard to look at a Chiefs player for me. I like Kittle because I mentioned, the opportunity for him to, against his profile against man coverage being so good, there's the chance he breaks a big play and finds the end zone, or he's a good red zone target as well. He's second on the team in targets in goal-to-go situations. McCaffrey actually number 1, shockingly. So anyone other than McCaffrey's tough, but Kittle's a good price, plus 180. I like that because I do think Kittle can break a big play and find the end zone, even with not quite the big volume we talked about in terms of the run game being the focal point. But Kittle I would play at plus 180.
Yeah, so I went with a Chiefs player, seeing these two guys go with Niners, and I think this is definitely a great price for a player as well. Rashee Rice, T-Mac kind of talked about it as well. I like him for a couple of reasons. Mainly, I think just the fact that Steve Wilkes plays so much zone coverage. I think the fact that Rashee Rice, was talking to T-Mac this before the video, he moves a lot around the line of scrimmage, whether it be in the slot or on the outside. I think there's going to be pockets that they're going to try to find Rashee Rice in, considering, you have MVS who runs this way, and that's pretty much it. You have Kelsey, and then this is going to be Mahomes' other favorite option. And the red zone, too, you look in the playoffs, he's averaging about 2 targets per game in the red zone, minus that game against Baltimore as well. And then if you look at that game that they played against the Niners, a guy who had a lot of success was Juju Smith-Schuster, who runs a lot from the slot, and he had a touchdown. McCole Hardman had a touchdown in that game. So I think maybe they try to throw to similar players in this one. Rashee Rice being a very similar mimic to McCole Hardman, just a little bit better and a guy who's a little bit more reliable downfield. So Rashee Rice plus 140, I think, is a good price.
I always find seeing Rice getting the ball inside the 20 in like a simulated run game, like the screen pass where they're like, we're not going to run the ball traditionally, but this will basically be like a run because Rice is like a tackle breaker. I could definitely see him score. What's his price?
Plus 140.
140.
The good news for you, Ryan, is that you won't see Mecole Hardman running the ball inside the 5. I promise you that.
Sure.
I can probably guarantee you that. So maybe it's Rashee Rice getting the handoffs, getting the catches there.
Okay, last one. Let's go a little bit off the board. This is the novelty prop, and this is the one you're like, you haven't paid attention to this, you don't know about this, but you need to bet it.
Okay, opening kickoff. No.
This is a thing. This is a thing, though.
I bet this every year. Touchback. No, sorry, I pronounced it wrong. So opening kickoff not to be a touchback. So I've bet this every single season for the last 3 years. It didn't hit last year. It hit in the Bucks and Chiefs Super Bowl. That wasn't cash, and that price was like plus 300. Now again, I'm not going to give you some sell job here. The touchback hits more than ever. It's an indoor game. This is one of those where you get up for the kickoff. You're the only one screaming at the TV, and they're like, everyone's like, what the hell is this guy doing? All your casual friends. So if you want to get a little sweaty, have a little bit of fun to start the game off, you're going to bet no touchback at plus 260. So you can join me on that sweat.
Yeah. My favorite as well, beginning of the game, is just to scream at everybody to shut up as soon as the anthem starts. So I'm betting on
Start the timer?
Reba McEntire singing it. I'm under 90.5 seconds. If you guys look at the YouTube Shorts page, I did a video on this, and she sung the national anthem at some big events, World Series, celebrity softball game, some rodeo, and she soared under. Her longest was 1 minute and 23 seconds, and they got this at 1 minute and 30. So I'm gonna take the under.
Yeah,
You should too.
Yeah, you should take the under. He did a lot.
No one's done more
Went
research
by,
than
I went by
Tyler.
his desk. He was watching an old highlight tape of Reba McEntire
YouTube
singing.
video where it's not
National
rectangular, it's square.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about?
so funny. So mine is the Gatorade color here. I honestly T-Mac went way more in depth in terms of actually looking at what type of Gatorade they were drinking, but he found out that there's got to be some sort of rule or something where you can't show the Gatorade color in these like 24/7 kind of videos where it's more like inside the locker room and stuff like that. I just have a weird hunch that it's going to be yellow-green. That's pretty much all it is. It's plus 300. I'm just going to be rolling with that. It's a little sprinkle to have fun to look for at the end of the game. There are definitely a ton of other really fun novelty props as well, but I'm just rolling with this one. I'm not usually a big Gatorade color guy, but I've been thinking yellow-green, Another gold for
Vibes
gold.
play.
The Niners are gold, yellow-green. Maybe it's going to be yellow. There's no really sell drop for
It was
it.
just fucking purple last
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let us know your favorite player props for this one in the comments down below. Anything we haven't talked about or you want to bring up, or just a crazy one you were shocked to find. Let us know who you think's winning the Super Bowl too. You probably, if you're in the comments, you probably tell us it's not the 49ers, but we shall see. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please do hit that like button, the best way to support us over here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and the last video of the 2023 NFL season.
Good season, man.